Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone that's joining us today. Welcome to the first ever Bamboo Bootcamp. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have our speakers and they're here and they're ready and they're excited to speak to all of us. We're just going to wait a few more minutes, let's say 2 to 3 minutes so more people can join. But thank you so much once again for joining us. I hope you're excited as we are today, this morning. Okay, everybody, I think this is a good time to start. We have about 94 people in the room. That's amazing. So good morning, everyone. My name is Jola Devi, and I will be moderating this session. Welcome to the Bamboo Bootcamp. We put this together because we really wanted to help people learn how to create their wealth. Sorry, how to grow. Sorry, I got distracted by a message that came in. But we really put together this bootcamp so that we can help people grow their wealth and learn about investing, personal finance, the stock market, entrepreneurship, and everything related. I have three wonderful people who have taken time out of their very busy days to join us today. Today's session is titled Growing Your Business in Tough Environments. We have Tunji Andrews, who is the co-founder of Awogboro.ng. We have Temi, Marcella, Awogboro, the executive director of Evercare Hospital. And last but definitely not least, we have Subomi Plumptre, Director of Volition Capital Investments. So I'm going to be asking our wonderful panelists a couple of questions about entrepreneurship, growing your business, what exactly is a tough environment, and we're going to be learning from them, and hopefully everybody learns something new. If you want to ask questions, you can use the Q&A, the Q&A box right there to ask questions. So if you have anything to say, if you have any questions, that's the best place to do it. We're going to be talking for about 25 to 30 minutes. Then we're going to play a fun game. I hope everybody finds this really fun. And then we'll be taking questions towards the end. So is everybody ready? Hello?
Yes, okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
We are ready.
Okay, great. So the first question I have is for everybody, but we can take it one at a time. Maybe Tunji can go first. What are some of the questions you believe people should ask themselves before they even think of pursuing entrepreneurship?
Do you like your piece? It's crazy. I honestly just think that most people who go into entrepreneurship, if they knew what it would take from them, whether successful or not, at least 50% of the people who eventually go into entrepreneurship may not do it. You know, it's a very roller coaster kind of journey. So, you know, the number one thing is, are you ready to let go of I don't want to call it your piece, but it feels that way because you're going to be doing a lot of things. But ironically, it's also it's almost like that drug addict kind of scenario where you know it feels really hurtful, but also you don't want to let go because it just gives you such a high and such a rush. And then if you left it, you probably want to come back. So if you can't deal with that high octane, high energy, high pressure situation, maybe you shouldn't do it.
Okay. What do you think, Subomi?
I think you should just find your why. Find the reason why you want to go into entrepreneurship. There's nothing wrong in going into entrepreneurship to make a shitload of money. There's nothing wrong in going into entrepreneurship to send your kids to school. So really just find your why, because that's what's going to keep you when the tough times come. And there's nothing that says, entrepreneurship is off ahead as well. There are some people who have gone into entrepreneurship and they've made money in the first year. So I think just be individualistic, find out what works for you, and what would keep you going, and then just start from there.
All right. What do you think, Temi?
Yeah, so two things actually. And one, I'd like to echo Subomi's point around the importance of your why, and I term it purpose, right? I have the trifecta that I always look at. It's purpose, passion, and performance. And I think that ultimately when those three are in alignment is when, I've seen the most success in terms of founding teams and entrepreneurs. So sort of having an alignment of that purpose, your why, being passionate about the opportunity you're going after, and then making sure that you're focused on results and performance. And the second thing I always say is, are you ready to run through walls? Because entrepreneurship, there are the ups, there are the downs, and it always comes down to, do you have that resilience and that grit to stay in the arena, to stay in the field, when it feels like everything is going against you, and even when things are going right, can you stay grounded? So those are the two things that I always focus on in terms of success for founding teams and entrepreneurs.
That's great. That's really interesting to hear. So everybody knows that entrepreneurship is very hard, even when you have the right infrastructure and you have all the right building blocks. What would you all describe as a tough entrepreneurial environment? Temi, since you spoke last, you can just take it from here.
Yeah, I think, it's a relative question. I don't think there's an absolute tough entrepreneurial environment, because on the one hand, you can see Nigeria is a very tough entrepreneurial environment because of the frictions, because of the sort of limited infrastructure, the regulatory, challenges that you may face. But on the hindsight, that therein lies the opportunity. Those frictions and those inefficiencies provide advantages for the right entrepreneurs and the right founders to attack an opportunity, and also give you higher barriers to entry and potentially higher margins. On the flip side, in markets like the US or more developed, mature entrepreneurial ecosystems, that lack of friction often means the competitive threat is higher. It means margins tend to be lower. It means, it's often counterintuitively failure rates are higher. So, the failure rate for entrepreneurs in the US is about 90%, 10% of which fail in their first year. So I think we shouldn't go in with the notion of, a hard entrepreneurial environment versus an easy one. To win in entrepreneurship, you have to either do something that hasn't been done before, or do something that's been done before better than anyone else. Wherever you're doing that in the world, it's tough. So it comes down to a true understanding of the environment you're operating in, and then configuring your startup for success within that environment. That would be my recommendation.
That was really the fact about that you said 90% of entrepreneurs fail in their first year in the US. I've never heard that before. That's really amazing, really interesting. Tunji, what do you think? What would you describe as a tough entrepreneurial environment? Hello, Tunji, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. I think every environment is tough for entrepreneurs, generally because entrepreneurs are really trying to solve a problem. So there's a solution, there's a problem, and you're bringing a solution to it. By nature, every problem is difficult. If you're going to monetize the solving of a problem, it will be difficult. There will be things that do not want, there'll be a lot of inertia, there'll be a lot of pushback, whether by the people, whether by just simple forces of regulation, one way or another. If you're trying to really solve a problem, really solve a problem, you will have those issues. So I think I generally tend to believe that if you can survive in one entrepreneurial area, chances are that you can survive in most others. Of course, there are nuances to this conversation, but once you're in that entrepreneurship conversation, it's going to be challenging, it's going to be tasking. So I don't think there's this place that is better than another.
Subomi, do you agree?
I think the way I'll define a tough entrepreneurial environment is when I spend more than 50% of my time doing things that don't concern me, instead of focusing on the work at hand. So it's really none of my business. Why am I looking for water? Why am I looking for lights? Why am I trying to repair Nigeria's educational system simply because I can't find really skilled staff? Those are not things that don't concern me. So it's when I spend so much of my time having to do those things, as opposed to product development, marketing, trying to develop my internal processes. When I spend a lot of my time going to beg regulators that on a normal day, I really don't want to talk to them. So for me, that's the tough environment. It's not really the job itself. It's that time that I spend chasing things that really are none of my business.
And from this question, it's really not like, a lot of people say, oh, Nigeria is a tough environment. But this question really allows us to understand and realize that anywhere could really be a tough environment. Nigeria, the US, the UK, you could have the best, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs think, oh, if I travel abroad, I can work there, I can, start something. But this stat of 90% of entrepreneurs failing their first year, like it's actually really interesting. It's blowing my mind. So do you believe that there are some sectors that are tougher than others to run a business in? And what advice would you give to an entrepreneur who has found themselves thinking about launching a business in a tough sector? So Tunji, why don't you take this one first?
I've generally come to see that especially areas of where you require a lot of research and development seem to be harder, just generally because you need a lot of sunk cost in terms of trying to raise a lot of capital upfront without any proof that you can actually do it. You're trying to, for instance, like SpaceX, you're trying to, make space travel something that is commercial, but how do you prove that you can do that? It's never been done before, and it's such an expensive venture. So pretty much a lot of the time when you're trying to go into areas of creating something that has never been created before, and it's just not technology, it's not just deploying software, it's usually very tasking. And it means that you have to, one, know what you're doing, but also you have to be able to sell what you're doing. You have to be able to raise a lot of capital. Raising capital, as people who are in the industry will know, is not a very easy feat. Even when you have boots on the ground and you're selling, how much more when you don't even have a product and you're just going around with a PowerPoint presentation. So I think that is probably one of the most difficult areas to sell. I've seen people in that space. I've seen them have meetings. I can see how difficult that is. It's not something I envy at all. I think that is probably one of the most difficult parts of entrepreneurship.
What do you think, Subomi?
I align with Tunji in the sense that when you're trying to create something new, so for example, if you wanted to set up an aerospace business in Nigeria, where you don't have the depth of talent, automatically it means you then need to recruit globally. So that takes up your cost. In addition, I would say any industry that is heavily politicized. So in addition to doing the real work, you're also having to deal with interests and deal with envy and those kinds of things.
Okay. And Temi, what do you think?
Yes, I would echo the comments that my fellow panelists have made. So highly regulated sectors tend to be quite challenging to establish businesses in sectors that require a large amount of upfront capital. And I think, one of the most important things is really understanding when you're coming into a sector where you want to play in terms of that value chain and how developed it is. Because I think what a lot of entrepreneurs end up doing is you say, you want to play in a very specific part of the value chain, but you realize that the value chain is broken backwards and forwards. So you end up having to backward integrate and forward integrate to fix the challenges. And that requires a lot more capital than you typically would have if you were able to just plug and play. So I think it comes down to really understanding what's in your arsenal, why are you best positioned to fix this problem, and what are the nuances of that sector that you need to overcome. Like everything, therein lies a potential opportunity, and I like to focus on the opportunity rather than the problems. And inherently, that's sort of the mindset of an entrepreneur, right? Focusing on how you solve the problems.
It's so great that you actually brought up like the mind of an entrepreneur, what the entrepreneur needs to know. Because my next question actually is, what sort of character traits or mental fortresses do you need to have as a business owner trying to grow a business in a tough environment like ours? Subomi, you can take this one first.
Okay, I would say a love of hard work, because you literally need to put in a lot and the buck stops with you. So no excuses mindsets, a lot of hard work. And you almost need to be like what you call an A&R manager in entertainment. You need to be able to spot talent, put talent together and help them maximize their individual skills to produce something that's a common goal. So that's what I would think the character traits would be.
Okay. Temi, what do you think?
A good sense of humor. Look, I think, sometimes things get very tough, especially in this kind of environment. One thing that has kept me going is just not taking everything so seriously, and sort of finding the lighter side in some of the challenges you face. I've already discussed the importance of courage and grit and resilience, because that's actually what separates the winners from those who just decide to quit. The importance of always being focused on your why. And the final thing I'll end with is the importance of relationships. In environments where you have formal institutions broken down, informal institutions take root, right? They are built and centered around this notion of trust. And so you'll find in our environment, and it still surprises me, that everything centers around relationships. It's frustrating because sometimes you think, I don't want to have to speak to this person. I don't want to have to interact with that person. But unfortunately or fortunately, it comes down to relationships with your customers, with your employees, with your regulators, with your gate man. And so finding ways, and funnily enough, it's not necessarily the person that can derail everything is not necessarily the most powerful person in that chain of relationships. It can be the person that you didn't even consider. So I think just finding ways to constantly build and deepen those relationships is very important, because ultimately it can make or break business models.
Yeah, thank you. I really like that, about relationships, the importance of relationships. So next question goes, there's a saying that goes actually, businesses die not when they run out of money, but when the founders run out of energy. How should you decide, or how should an entrepreneur decide when it's time to let the energy go, just cut their losses, or when to keep looking for opportunities to survive? Where's that line? Where's that point? Subomi, you can take this one first.
I would say when you feel that you've gotten to that point. I think at some point, everyone needs to just decide how much they can take. Sometimes I would say sleep on it and eat jollof rice. You know, sometimes a good meal can, make your problems seem smaller. So maybe after a good night's sleep and you've eaten well, then, maybe look at the problem again and see, okay, is it really time to quit, or should I give it one more go? But, there's no shame if you feel, oh, I want to re-strategize, go back, maybe come up with something else. Never believe that as an entrepreneur, you're only going to have one good idea in life. You have your life ahead of you. You have other ideas, other businesses that you're going to develop. So don't get caught in a trap thinking you just have one shot.
What do you think, Tunji?
I mean, it's a very interesting question because there's a balance to it where you are told, or you generally keep telling yourself you can't give up. You have to keep pushing. You have to keep making sure that it is available. You're able to do this. And then on the other side, you have to balance when you actually mentally realize that maybe this is the end. But I do know one of the things that keeps you going is that energy. If you don't believe anymore that it is possible, and nobody can fix that for you, maybe your mentors, your team, your board, nobody can fix that for you at that point, then it's either time for you to at least step away from the business, or the business should die. Because as a founder, a lot of the business, rises and falls off your energy. If your energy is wrong, it's going to kill a lot, because you have to motivate people, you have to inspire people. There are a lot of people that are going to come and work for you, not based on the salary, because especially in the financial technology industry, a lot of people come to work for you based on the fact that they're going to get shares in the company. So they're working based on the fact that we're trying to build something. And I'm not just looking at the salary now, I'm building something for the future. So mentally, it's important for them to, know that this is going to be a successful business. Once you don't believe that anymore, it's difficult for anybody to continue to believe it. So it's really a fine balance. You will lose motivation from time to time. That is why you need mentors. That is why you need a board. That is why you need a solid team that knows you. If those people can't speak to you through that position, then it's time to quit. Lack of money is never a problem. I'm not sure many businesses started with all the money in the bank account. So it can't be a problem. But if you lose that motivation and that self-belief in the idea, pack it up.
That's an interesting perspective. What do you think, Temi?
So someone once told me, I can't remember who, but they said the best way to win is to know when to quit. There are a number of reasons for why you may feel the need to quit. It might be the economy, it might be the wrong timing, right product or wrong timing. It may be the wrong team. There are infinite number of reasons that entrepreneurs or businesses fail. But I think I'll just take it from the personal and the entrepreneurial point of view. It's not really about the failing, it's about not letting that loss define you. And so I like to term it constructive quitting, right? So it's not about the failure. And sometimes I've found that those moments of failure actually open doors to much bigger opportunities that you couldn't see. So the difference in my mind, between constructive quitting and true failure is what happens next. If you've done it properly, then that temporary setback you can use as a milestone and as a stepping stone towards something greater. And, we shouldn't, it's a cultural thing. When you work in the Valley, they term it pivot, right? What is pivot? Pivot is like, this direction wasn't working, I've pivoted to another direction. So I think we need to take the emotion out of failure. Of course, you never want to lose and you never want to disappoint, and you have employees and you have to be a responsible entrepreneur. But entrepreneurship is such that you can pivot, you can change course of direction, and ultimately that may lead you on to bigger successes in the future. So just make sure that you're taking the signals from the market, from your business, from your board, from your mentors, and understanding when a course of direction is not working and not being afraid to pivot, and also not letting that failure or that pivot define your future goals and objectives.
I think we can all agree that we shouldn't let our failures define us and define, the way we move forward. So our last question for this portion, a lot of people think the business environment here in Nigeria is really, really tough. But even though we still have entrepreneurs that are still trying and are still trying to build, how should entrepreneurs today keep looking for new opportunities to grow their businesses in Nigeria? Tunji, you can take this one first.
Sorry, could you say that again? Sorry, I didn't get the entire question.
Oh, sorry about that. How should entrepreneurs keep looking for new opportunities to grow their businesses in Nigeria?
Interesting question. I've seen from my experience is we have to get out there. Nigeria, especially like Temi was saying earlier, Nigeria is a place where business is built on relationship. I'm not a very relationship oriented person in terms of I don't like to socialize much. I love the great indoors, but ever since I started our bar, I've had to, try to make meetings, try to make conferences, try to make events, because your partner, your customer, your investor, your board is always at the next event that you're going to be at. So the way to push the boundaries is just to have more relationships. You can't have enough relationships. It's weird, but you spend your time in Nigeria as a founder, you spend about 60 to 70% of your time building relationships. I mean, it's weird, but that is the honest truth about it. From your value chain to your suppliers to everybody, you just have to have so much relationships that you can be able to get by in the chaos and the, I'm trying not to confirm words, but I think chaos is the right word. The chaos we call an ecosystem or a country. Because if you want to get something done, you have to find somebody who can do it for you. And if you don't have those relationships, you probably spend a lot of time waiting for it to be done. So I think the one thing you have to do is build relationships, build as much as you possibly can. Don't stop building and nurture the old ones you've had, of course, because they can always come back to help and make it easy for you to be able to go to the next level.
Okay. Subomi, what do you think?
I would say two things. So the first thing is put your authentic self out there. I'm an introvert. I don't like talking to people. I've accepted it. But what I've done is to use technology and use social media to my advantage. So my first 100 customers came from Facebook. And every other customer I've had going forward has come from referrals. I've not had to advertise. I've not had to attend events I don't like. So I know it is possible to build a great business in Nigeria as an introvert. So my relationships are deep, not broad. I'd rather build relationships with 10 people who have sense and let those 10 people introduce me to 1,000 more that try to meet 1,000 people. It's just not my style. So put your authentic self out there. People will then be attracted to you. People who want you and who identify with you will then be attracted, but you can't hide. Technology gives you the opportunity to talk and to be loud without leaving your house. So please use technology to your advantage. The second thing I would say is think of Nigeria as your market, not your base. So it means you can hire your staff from Rwanda. You can register your company in the US. Don't be limited by Nigeria. Nigeria is a market. Your market is the whole world. Nigeria is just one out of several markets that exist. So don't think of yourself as limited to Nigeria, because sometimes when you think Nigeria alone, then you'll be forced to contort yourself into the Nigerian box and to do things the Nigerian way. So think of Nigeria as one market out of several, and you can expand to wherever suits your business and where you can find growth.
Okay. Temi, what do you think?
In addition to what has been said, which I very much agree with, relationships and seeing Nigeria as your market, I would also say, it's very important to be nimble. I've seen so many businesses and startups start up as one thing and have to evolve, quite frankly, because Nigeria is an evolving market. You start servicing one cohort of consumers, and then you have this emerging middle class consumers that you have to think how to service. So I think it's very important to in order to survive and to scale in this market, to be flexible and nimble, and therefore be able to adapt and evolve your business with the evolving market realities. So that's what I would say.
Okay, so we finished with the questions, and it's now time to play 2 quick games. But before we continue, I would like to say, if you have a question for any of the panelists, please put them in the Q&A box. We'll be taking the questions after we play the games. So if you have any questions at all, please ask us in the Q&A box. We already have 1 question, but I'd like there to be a couple of more before we start to take the questions. So for our first game, we're going to play toss or keep. I'm going to mention a stock, and you can tell me if you're going to either keep it or you're going to toss it away. Keep it means invest in it, you like it. You can also tell us why, so that we know exactly, what's the rationale between, like, why wouldn't you buy the stock over the stock? So who should go first? Temi, I'm going to take you first. So yes,
keep.
Why?
Elon Musk is crazy and out of this world. Yeah, just because I think he has ideas that will redefine the future of humanity as we know it. And so I'd like to have an option on that.
Subomi, are you keeping or are you tossing?
I'll keep it, pretty much for the same reason. He's the Steve Jobs of this generation.
Interesting. I've never heard that before. Tunji, will you keep or toss?
I'm forced to keep because of his clout and how he's able to influence pop culture recent. But I'm a bit worried about his eccentric nature. It worries me. I'm a bit old-fashioned when it comes to investing, and it worries me in terms of long-term stability. I'd rather look for fundamentals and strong stock rather than something built on something that's fashionable. So, but right now, I mean, it's difficult to bet against Tesla. So I will keep, but with an eye waiting on possibly to sell.
You're sleeping with one eye open, basically, with Tesla.
Exactly.
All right, so next one, Facebook. Shubumi, would you keep or toss?
I'll keep Facebook simply because it's redefining what community is. And even with all the upstarts like TikTok and co, for some reason, it remained relevant. So yes, I'll keep Facebook.
It's been around for a while, so I would understand that. Tunji, would you keep or toss Facebook?
Facebook is a fundamental company, it's solid. The model, it continues to grow. I mean, Subomi just said, despite all the other guys that have come up, the numbers are still significantly strong. There's no class you go to, there's nowhere you go to where they talk about how to, gain new customers that Facebook ads are not mentioned. So yes, I would keep Facebook because the revenue is still very strong.
Okay. Temi, what do you think? Keep or toss Facebook?
I think Facebook has completely redefined human interaction or social interaction, and they have a war chest in terms of cash that enables them to do a lot. So definitely keep. I think there's so much more potential in the business in the long term.
Okay. All right, next stock, Airbnb. Tunji, keep or toss?
Keep. Of course, keep. I think hotels are threatened in the future. Because if you look at the way hotels are, the experience is still great. I mean, hotel experience is still great, but people are looking to travel on a budget these days. Except, of course, you're really, really looking for luxury. People just want to be able to move from my home to a home, So Airbnb, I don't think Airbnb has done up to 50% of their capacity yet. I honestly don't think so. I think the future is a lot big for Airbnb. So yes, I would keep Airbnb.
Okay. Subomi, would you keep or toss Airbnb?
Yes, I would keep Airbnb simply because for they've redefined backpacking. So before, the only way you could backpack on a budget was to stay in a dormitory, but now you can backpack and, have a choice of, say, a one-room apartment somewhere. So yeah, I would keep it.
Okay. Temi, do you agree, keep or toss Airbnb?
Keep on fundamentals, toss on personal experience. I've had a couple of not very pleasant experiences using Airbnb that I feel the company has failed to address. So that reason, I would hate to put more money in their pocket, but as a business, I do think they have a lot of potential for sure.
It's interesting that you bring up like personal experience, because I feel like every day there's someone on Twitter or social media complaining about an Airbnb experience. So it's interesting that you bring that up, actually. So next stock, New York Times, keep or toss? Let's go with Subomi. What do you think?
Well, I know they're trying to do stuff in the digital age, but I think the structure for media is changing rapidly, and I think upstarts may have an advantage. So I'll toss simply because I don't really like legacy businesses. So I'll just toss.
Okay. Tunji, would you keep or toss New York Times?
Toss. I wouldn't touch it. It's for the same reasons Subomi spoke about. But I mean, think about it. How many people buy newspapers anymore? The world's population is predominantly young, and very young people never saw the culture of buying newspapers. I think my generation is probably the last generation that saw their parents buy newspapers on a regular basis. So I don't think there's much of a future, even if they pivot into technology, which a lot of them are doing. The question still is, why would I let go of the fun, blogs, the fun outlets right now and go to New York Times? What exactly does New York Times offer me that those guys cannot offer me? There's not much of a differentiator for New York Times at this time, so I will toss.
Okay. Temi, keep or toss New York Times?
Toss. I like growth. I like businesses that are forward-looking and future-proof, and I don't think they have that.
Okay. So Peloton, keep or toss? Let's go. Tunji, would you keep or toss Peloton?
I don't even know the business. Who are they?
They make exercise bikes. A company that kind of combines tech and exercise. They have these exercise bikes and treadmills that have video. They have Peloton.
I get it. So I know a little about what is happening in that space, and it's very interesting, especially because of the pandemic. I'm one of the people who had to build a gym in my home. So, I realized that, in fact, a few investors, I was at a few places where a few investors were trying to bring stuff like that into the country because there was more demand for it. So I see there's a future in it, but it's not a future based on serious fundamentals. They are going to have to keep the fad going, keep the mystery around fitness going for people to continue to buy it. And I think it's going to happen. I mean, look at waist trainers, absolutely useless, but it's the highest selling fitness apparel in the entire world. So I think if they can create some fad around it, it'll work. So I'll keep my eye on it, but I wouldn't buy all toss, but I'll keep my eye on it.
Okay. Subomi, keep or toss Peloton?
Now I'll toss it. I mean, tomorrow yoga might become more sexy than cycling. So I think it's really a fad. So I would, unless they evolve into something more sustainable, I'll toss.
Temi, do you agree?
Maybe I'm one of those that's drunk the Kool-Aid, but I'd keep Peloton. Initially, I thought they were going to flame out when they first came to the market, but I think they've been smart in terms of customer acquisition, in terms of making it a lifestyle brand, and in terms of trying to sell an experience that's more than just the bike. And I know they're expanding into treadmills and all sorts of things. So I think if they continue to do the celebrity endorsements and sort of build that lifestyle experience and lifestyle business, then potentially there's a lot more upside to the business, and they're more sustainable essentially. So I'd keep.
Okay, so keep or toss Home Depot. Who do we go with? Everybody's shaking their head. Everybody's trying to figure out who should
No, Home Depot I would keep. I'll definitely keep, especially because of their core market, which is America. It's a DIY society. People are not going to stop working with their hands. There's such pride, in doing stuff with your hands over there. So I think as long as their core market remains countries or cultures where people just really love to build and do things with their hands, then I think they would continue to succeed.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to cut this short because we've already reached like the end, but we're gonna take one more stock, just one more. And it's a stock that has really been in the news as of late, and it is GameStop. So would you keep or toss GameStop?
Toss.
I know everybody's like, ooh.
Yeah, toss.
So I think I'll go. I don't like what GameStop did. That over the it was not them really, but you see, GameStop. There's no fundamental to it. The growth is they're going to keep, not doing badly, but I don't think there's a large upside because the real reason the business was doing well was because people were able to borrow, games and stuff like that. But in the future, it's I mean, everybody has a game console in their houses. Everybody can afford it. It's online. It's it's easy to get through. I don't think there is a big future for them, except they pivot into, I don't know, something else. But for what it is, I'm worried that there's a future for them. I'll toss.
Would you keep or toss?
I'll toss it. Definitely.
So I would toss. I like what GameStop came to notoriety because of what it represented in terms of the battle between Wall Street and Main Street, small investors, right? So I like what it represents because I think there has to be, as we go forward, a decentralization and a more equitable distribution of power when it comes to investing in personal wealth. But I don't think any of that had to do with the fundamentals of GameStop. So I would definitely toss.
Okay, so we're gonna answer a couple of questions right now. We have a few questions here. So this person asked, when starting, how do you assign finalized costs and a mean of cost recovery? I think he means a mean of cost recovery for his business or for a business. So when starting, how do you assign finalized costs and a mean of cost recovery?
Maybe he's talking about the inputs that go into starting a business. How do you recover?
Like how do you recover cost needs of starting a business?
That's hard. So you can have a plan. You can have a plan, and the plan is, it's always good to have a plan. I always say that if you cannot win on paper, then you definitely cannot win in real life. I mean, paper is so easy to win. Excel even makes it easier. You just took a number here, took a number there, and voila, you're profitable. But in real life, it's a completely different ballgame. But I think you just need to find structure at the beginning. Make sure that your CAC is in control, and just don't spend money for the sake of spending money. One of the things I've also come to realize as a company is that just the fact that the money is available doesn't mean you should spend it. There's so many things we wanted to get. There was a time we were going to digitize all our customer service conversations. And I mean, it made sense at the time, we're a tech company, so let's put a robot and make sure. And it wasn't like it wasn't going to cost us that much. It was going to cost us a bit, but not that much. But at the end of the day, we realized that the human touch has actually done us a lot better, and it's free, So you just need to keep your eye on the cost. I know that because tech businesses are raising a lot of money, it's easy to spend money, but maybe I'm just old school. Keep your eye on the cost and make sure you don't spend too much money. Keep your eye on the CAC, make sure that it doesn't balloon out of control. And then you'll be able to see a way to be able to, acquire your money back. How long that takes, I don't know.
Okay, good answer. So we have a question here. How do you identify valuable stocks? I feel like this question isn't for us. We have another session, 2 sessions actually, on how to identify valuable stocks to beat wealth goals, and also another session on how to pick your first stock. So if you ask this question or you even have questions about stocks, just wait for our investing panels, which are coming tomorrow and Thursday. So wait for that. So the next question here is, how can I get funding from a VC for my business? Temi, I think it would be good for you to answer this question. How can I get funding from VC for my business?
Yeah, so it really depends. I think the first thing is having sort of a clear business plan in terms of what's the problem you're trying to solve, what's the addressable market, what's the size of that addressable market, who's the team behind it, why are you and your team best placed to solve this problem? Now, obviously, depending on where you are in that journey, you'll speak to different kinds of investors. So some traditional venture capital investors will only talk to you once you've established product market fit or you've had some traction. And so typically, if your product or your service is much earlier than that and you're just at the conceptualization or ideation phase, then I tend to recommend speaking to friends and families who may be able to provide some funding to support your idea and at least for you to get some degree of traction, as well as potentially some angel networks that invest in pre-seed, pre-product market fit businesses. So it really is dependent, but at any stage in your life cycle, you have to be cognizant of what that venture capital firm is looking at and whether you fit within their fund mandate, essentially. But I always say, there's this notion, and I think it comes from the trends in the rest of the world, that you haven't made it if you haven't taken VC money. There's absolutely no reason that from day one you should be thinking about raising venture capital. Bootstrapping is a very viable approach in terms of raising, in terms of funding and financing ideas and businesses, and also friends and family. So I don't think you should be you don't have to start a business with the end goal that you want to raise venture capital money. It should be more focused on what's the problem I'm trying to solve. Is there an addressable market and how do I unlock that potential? Then the secondary question is, how do I get there? And venture capital is just one of many potential roads to getting there.
Okay. Subomi, what do you think?
Yeah, I would say focus on the idea first. I always say that there's no VC who will turn down a really fantastic idea that's going to make them money. So if the idea, if the structure of your pitch deck, your business plan is sound, you would at least attract initial attention from a VC. But I would say also attend a lot of competitions, venture competitions, because they're a stage. A lot of times when you attend venture competitions, you get free publicity, free PR. You meet people that ordinarily you would never have met at those kinds of sessions. So hackathons and competitions, I would say attend those things, even if you don't get any money from those things. Usually at those competitions, they would help you refine your pitch deck, help you refine your business plan. So you also get free consulting services from attending a hackathon or attending a competition. So I would say that that's also another platform you can explore.
Okay. Tunji, do you have anything to add?
You're muted.
You're on mute.
Sorry about that. I wanted to emphasize the point Subomi said. It's not spoken about a lot, but I'm not sure there are many VCs. There are many businesses that are being funded that did not go that route, at least at some point. So there are a lot of accelerators across the world, which avail you some level of funding. Some give you grants at the end, some take some percentage of your business, about 6%, 10%, 15%, depending on the accelerator, and are able to give you some level of money. Now, it's only this kind of people that will overlook some of your flaws as a business, because obviously the reason why I get the accelerator is to be able to accelerate the growth. It's important for many reasons. One, when you get into such an accelerator and get their money, it gives you validation because they are now on your cap table. So it tells other investors that some decent people are on your cap table. But more importantly, there is massive publicity that it gives you. The visibility is beautiful. Just hearing that you got accepted into YC or 500 startups is big news for your business. It just gives validation that your idea is something to at least pay attention to. So you want to look at that and stop chasing VCs. I read somewhere that VCs spend 90% of their time saying no and 10% of their time begging. So they master the art of saying no. And then when they find the business that is really great, because everybody also sees the business that is really great, they're begging to get in on that 10% of the deals that come their way. So focus on your business, find ways to, structure your business, and they will come eventually.
Okay. So another question here is, how important is data to an entrepreneur/startup? How important is data? Subomi, you can take this.
Please explain data.
Just said data. How important is data?
What I would say, if it's data, in terms of research and development, very important. If it's data in terms of maybe keeping your records, keeping your books, so that you can maybe analyze the past and look at the trends and maybe lessons, that's also good.
Okay. Temi, anything to add?
Yeah, look, I think we are in a world, someone said data is now more valuable than oil, right? So data is extremely important to a business, just in terms of understanding where they are, where they're trying to get to. It's important when you're trying to raise external funding because people can only go by data. But also data unlocks a whole host of potential additional revenue streams that you haven't thought about, right? I think one of the challenges in our market, in the Nigerian market, is just an absence of data. I remember when I was trying to do what we've done in healthcare, the biggest obstacle we had was there was just no data. And so a lot of the work we've been doing is collecting that data, analyzing that data. And we're a healthcare company. We're not a data company by any means. We're building a hospital. We've built a hospital, right? But it's an asset that you can hold on to, and over time you can think about additional ways to use to enhance your own operational efficiency, but also then use to monetize. So I definitely think that everyone actually should be taking data very seriously and building structures in place from the get-go that enable you to capture and ultimately to use data to basically better your business, for sure.
Okay, and Tunji, anything to add?
I agree. I mean, data is even just how to target your market. This is beautiful. I mean, it's magical. If you don't look at it from the perspective of data, you would never realize how amazing it is that you can just save yourself a lot of time, where you have segmentation, where the person probably uses a substitute of your product on a particular day. So instead of just randomly blasting, because back in the day, it was just to have a big billboard on the roads and just hope that your customer sees it. Now you have data that can, specifically target them at the time when exactly they need the product. So maybe they buy your substitute once every month on the 25th. That kind of data, getting access to it is important. It's beautiful. So not just even getting it, also reminding that data and stretching it again, because after you now acquire these people, you now want to know their habits and you want to be able to better position the product for them. So it can't be said enough. Data is if you're not paying attention to it, you're probably about to die as a business.
Okay, and with that answer brings us to the end of our first session. Thank you so much once again to our panelists for joining us for such an enlightening and knowledgeable session. I have learned something. I hope all the attendees have learned something today as well. Thank you so much for joining us for today's session. We have another session this evening at, is it 5 or 6 p.m.? At 5 p.m. We're excited to have everybody there. Before we go, we want to announce that Bamboo is going to be giving out big prizes to people that trade this week in the spirit of the Bamboo Bootcamp. So the more trades you complete, the higher your chance of winning one of our grand prizes. Thank you once again. Oh, sorry, I just got the answer. The session today is for 6 p.m. You should be getting emails about that as well. Thank you so much once again to our panelists, Subomi, Plumptre, Temi, Marcella, Awogboro, and Tunji Andrews. Thank you so much once again. Thank you. Hope you have a great day. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.